I'm Julie Baumgartner, and this is the Marriage on the Daily podcast, the podcast designed to give you tools and encouragement to help you do married well on the daily. Because after all, it isn't the grand gestures that make or break your marriage. It's actually what you do or don't do on the daily that either builds a strong foundation or chips away at your core. You can do this, and I'm here to help. Hello, and welcome to the Marriage on the Daily podcast. I'm your host, Julie Baumgartner. Today, I am joined by Dr. Kelly Flanagan. He is a clinical psychologist, a best-selling author, and a personal coach, and he is a closet stand-up comic. We'll have to go back and have a little conversation around that. Kelly is married to Kelly. They are celebrating 25 years. They have 3 boys. And I am just so excited to have this conversation with you. We're going to spend some time talking about your brand new book, The Road Less Triggered, which I am excited to explore because you hear that word tossed around a lot. So welcome to Marriage on the Daily.
It's so good to be here, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So do tell, how did you come to write this particular book? I know you've written several, but why this Road Less Triggered?
Well, it's funny you say that word triggered, it gets bantered around a lot. I actually have a good friend who's like, I can't bring myself to buy the book because the word triggered is triggering to me. And I think what she means is like, she's triggered by the fact that the terms become so watered down in our culture. You'll have a TikTok influencer who gets the wrong latte at Starbucks, and then they're telling, 1 million followers that they're triggered. And in that sense, triggered doesn't really mean anything anymore. And on the other hand, I'm a clinical psychologist, right? So I'm a clinical person, and triggered is often a word that we have associated with like severe PTSD, combat veterans.
Right.
And with this book, I wanted to actually reclaim the word and use it in the way that most of the people I've worked with in a clinical setting as a couples therapist use it. They use the word all the time. I got triggered, right? He triggered me. She triggered me. And so I wanted to speak to that moment in relationships and actually create a guide for people so that they can navigate those moments in a way that leaves them more connected, not in more conflict. And really that for me arises out of the need to do it for myself. If I go back to my sort of professional experience as an outpatient couples therapist, I started to realize really early on in working with couples. I was trained at Penn State, PhD, specialty in conflict resolution and communication. So I was trained and given like the most well-stocked communication skills toolbox of all, right? And then said, go out into the world now and teach couples these communication skills so they can resolve their problems, and then, everything will be hunky-dory. Well, I get out into the real world and I start teaching couples communication skills, and it occurs to me slowly, they've already got most of these communication skills. They're successful doctors, attorneys, teachers, stay-at-home parents of busy households, business owners, and so on. They're, like in most spaces in the world, and even in most spaces in their relationships, they communicate pretty well. But there's this repetitive moment that happens where what is happening is they're shutting their communication toolbox, and they're forfeiting access to their skills and their tools. And I didn't really know what to do with that for quite a while. And then I hit the 2020 year that we all remember, COVID.
Oh, mercy.
Tons of fun, right? And I found myself, at the beginning of the year, even prior to COVID, I found myself getting triggered in an important relationship to me, a business partnership with my best friend. We ended up dissolving that business partnership and the friendship, sadly. And then COVID hit right away after that, and it was stressful trying to figure out how to keep the business viable, outpatient mental health when no one can come meet.
Can come, yes.
Right? And then kids are schooling from home while we're trying to, keep this practice alive. And I said they're becoming zombies, like on Zoom, doing class, but it's not really working. And so anyways, I was getting triggered left and right. And then one Sunday, my wife had convinced me to get an above ground pool. Finally, she leveraged all the, the public pool closings, and she's like, now we've got to get one, right? I'm like, okay. So we put in an above ground pool. She goes out on Sunday morning. She hangs the garden hose over the side to fill it up, and she puts a rock on it to anchor it there. Well, the rock wasn't heavy enough.
Oh gosh.
And we didn't go back. I didn't go out until the afternoon.
Oh, no,
yeah.
no.
And I got out there and the pool was bone dry and the backyard was a lake. And I thought, I was so triggered. I was like, I'm going to set my relationship back like a month this time if I don't get out of here and blow off this steam, right? So I hop on my bike. I'm like, I'm going to blow off all this steam on a bike ride. Well, not the wisest thing to do, to cycle at 35 miles per hour on asphalt when you're angry and not paying attention, right? And I go over the handlebars of my bike and I break my left collarbone in 2 places. And it didn't heal properly. They're called fibrous tissue non-union fractures. So I've got a couple joints in that collarbone now where there's not supposed to be any. And anyways, it made for a long and painful recovery. So I got to New Year's Eve of 2020 going into 2021. And I was looking at fitness resolutions to get myself in shape, to get my body in shape. And I came across a quote as I was doing that New Year's Eve. And the quote was, the quote was, do not let anything in life be important enough that you're willing to close your heart over it.
Ooh.
And it sort of, and that quote sort of hit me harder than the asphalt road, right? Do not let anything in your life be important enough that you're willing to close your heart over it. And I thought, that's why I'm in the situation that I'm in. It's not my circumstances. It's how I'm reacting to my circumstances. It's me getting triggered and then closing my heart to what's going on and losing it, like those couples so long ago, losing access to their wisest sort of communication tools. Here I am losing access to my wisest responses when I'm reacting triggered. So, okay. So I said, this is my New Year's resolution going into 2021. Moment to moment, I will notice my heart closing and try to open it back up. And, I often say these days that, Paul's exhortation in the Gospels to pray without ceasing was always sort of like, was a confusing one to me, like I've got to pay the bills too, Paul. I mean, I know your vocation was to march to Rome and, but mine is different. Yeah. And, but what I've discovered over the last 5 years is that this New Year's resolution has become my core spiritual practice. It's my way of praying without ceasing, to show up to any moment and to notice when my heart closes to it and try to open it back up. Yeah. So that over time evolved into a process for navigating triggered moments with an open heart so we can stay connected, not in conflict. And that's really what I've laid out in this book, The Road Less Triggered.
Wow. Man, that is so good. And I love your point about, we talk about, we just don't communicate, but we are definitely communicating. We may be missing each other, but we are for sure communicating, and people are walking away, whether it's our spouse or our coworker or our children, they're walking away believing a message based on what it is we're saying or not saying. And
I think Gottman's research shows that it's like the majority of actual communication is happening non-verbally.
Right. Yes.
And what I've learned in the last 5 years is that a flashpoint for a lot of couples is one partner will be going along pretty much as is and as normal and thinking everything is okay, but something that is said or done triggers their partner, and they can actually feel their partner's energy close to them, right? The partner doesn't even have to go out of their way to roll their eyes or cross their arms or something. You can feel the contraction of energy. Your partner just closed their heart and separated themselves from you. And now you feel that, and now you start to get triggered because that sense of separation triggers you to go into fight or flight mode. And now the two of you are in it, right? And it's Groundhog Day all over again.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So absolutely, a lot of this is happening non-verbally. Yeah.
Well, what, 7%? Only 7% of our communication is verbal. Everything else.
Is that the number? That sounds about right. Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
So,
yep.
Woo, man. Well, yes. So that, great point. And then the other piece is just this whole triggering. I like the idea of trying to figure out how do we take this back? Because yes, everything triggers. And I also think that something I spend a lot of time thinking about is when we say, you triggered me, that triggers me. Basically, I am giving control of my emotions over to you. I'm saying, oh, it's your fault that I am this way, except for I'm responsible for me.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that phrase, "you triggered me," or "that triggered me," is a dead giveaway. That we're sort of exporting our sense of ownership, our sense of agency over this moment. That we are disempowering ourselves, and saying essentially, and this is really normal. We all do it. I do it. I still get caught in this. To say, you need to do something out there for me to feel better in here. And I often joke, if you know my wife, this is a highly inefficient way to change things inside of me. She's an Enneagram 8. She's a fiery Portuguese woman. Like me being like, you need to do X, Y, and Z for me to feel better. That's not going to happen. Right. And really it doesn't ever work in relationships. One of the stories I tell to sort of really highlight that is, this was last summer, we're in north central Illinois, upper Midwest, humid heat wave last summer.
Yes.
And I'm sitting at this very desk one afternoon, and I can just feel it starting to get a little, like hot under the collar. I'm like, what's going on? I go into the furnace room, and the furnace is rapid cycling on and off. It's like trying to start, but it's not starting. So I jokingly say, so this is what I did. I didn't call the HVAC person to explore what was going on with the furnace. I spent my whole week brainstorming ways to make it cooler outside so it would stay cooler in the house. Right? Completely absurd.
Right.
We can't control the weather, but in our relationships, right, we do try to do that. Our people's feelings, their behaviors, their opinions, their beliefs, their actions, all of that is the weather, and we have no control over it. And yet we sit around trying to figure out how are we going to change the weather so it stays cooler in here, when what we really need to be doing is sort of going directly to the control board on the furnace and getting it regulated in here so that we can then relate out there.
Well, and what I think is so interesting about that is there is nothing worse than feeling out of control, right? I mean, we don't like that feeling. It feels chaotic and uncertain. We don't like it.
That's right.
And so I do think it's interesting. And yes, I totally agree. I do it. And even though I don't want to do it, it's like, no, you caused that. It's like, wait a second. I am actually placing all that over there on you when it is actually within me and my responsibility to figure out what is going on here and how do I engage with it in a healthy way.
Well, it's a great point. Like, one of the sort of greatest human desires is to feel in control, because that helps us to feel certain and safe, right? Which is part of what helps our nervous systems to stay calm. There's a tricky thing that happens, though, in these triggered moments, because what you're being triggered by is the sense of disconnection that's happening, the sense of being separate and alone. And so ironically, if we let our nervous system and our sort of lizard brain, as we say, sort of take over in that moment and try to control the moment, the lizard brain has three, it has two basic functions, which is fight or flight, right? It's to basically deal decisively with the threat outside of us.
Right.
So ironically, we are paradoxically trying to solve the problem of disconnection by running from connection or fighting the person we want to be connected with.
The very thing.
So so we are actually, our lizard brain will always exacerbate the very problem we're trying to control for in that moment. And so it's really important to sort of be able to bring our higher mind back online in that moment, rather than a day from now when all the damage is done and now we're sort of back in the cycle of repair again even. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So The Road Less Triggered, your latest book, just out, doing really well.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we just found out this morning that it hit number 23 on the USA Today bestseller list. It's very, very exciting that this awesome message is going to get out to a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I would love for you to unpack that, because I do believe people want to know, how do you take a road that is less triggered, where I feel more connected to my spouse. And
yes,
I mean, I know, and I know that the vertical relationship with the Lord is most important. And that helps me to stay grounded and steady. And
that's right.
Help my heart to stay open. And we also are functioning down here on earth and trying to figure out how to be in the world, not of the world.
That's right.
How do we go about being less triggered?
Well, I appreciate you mentioning that vertical relationship and how it ties in to how we live in human form, right? And I think one of the fundamental connections there is that, God gave us a nervous system for a reason. He knew we had to survive in creation and thrive over the course of thousands of years. And so we were given this nervous system to react, like if you see something stick-like suddenly appear on the path in front of you, he gave you a nervous system to jump back before you have to think about anything so that you don't get bit by the snake, right?
Yes.
The nervous system can only calm down and get regulated when the organism feels a sense of safety. And so to exist in that vertical relationship with God, as you say, and to source your sense of safety from that greater truth, right, that we're held in the hands of God, actually soothes our nervous system.
Yes.
And so now we're existing in human form in a way that we can show up with our best stuff because we're not activated and in a state of danger and hypervigilance and so on. You can't, this is so important, you can't be in protection mode and connection mode at the same time, right?
You got to say that again.
You can't be in connection mode and protection mode at the same time. So when you're triggered, what's happening is you're flipping into protection mode. Now, theoretically, you're still trying to connect with your people in that moment, right? But you're in protection mode, so you're setting everybody up for failure. And so when we get that, we have to get the nervous system regulated first so that we can shift out of protection mode and back into connection mode. And this is where I think a lot of us, there's two places in the process that I lay out in the book where we try to reverse the natural instinct. The first one is our natural instinct is to connect ourselves before we calm ourselves. And in this book, we reverse that. We say you have to calm yourself before you connect yourself. Yes, if you find someone who is able and willing to help you co-regulate, that's great. It's probably not going to be the person you're in the moment triggered with. They're probably not going to be the one to help you co-regulate.
Yeah.
So in that moment, you're going to have to take responsibility for that, for self-regulating. And once you regulate, then you can relate. Although in this, go ahead. Yeah, I heard you.
No, I just was going to say, how do you do that? And I'm asking because, as you know and talked about at the very beginning of the podcast, we learned all kinds of communication and conflict management skills in graduate school. And we can teach them all day long. And people say, hey, that's not practical. That's not natural. I don't know how to do that. I would love for you to talk about how do you actually cultivate calm? How do you get to that place where you take responsibility for you and do it?
I think the first thing in how this process I'm laying out in the book differentiates itself from others is most of the books or sort of thinking that I have been exposed to about triggered moments, it usually starts with the point where you're already triggered. And I think we all know, right? Yeah. How hard it is to put that cat back in the bag.
Yes.
And so the very first step in the process that I lay out in the book here is learning to use really a superpower that we all have to sense that your conflict is coming, to sense that your nervous system is about to get triggered, that you're about to close your heart. You're about to choose protection mode over connection mode. And that superpower is called interoception. And it's our sixth sense, literally. So our five senses, hearing, taste, touch, and smell, they're all designed to sort of survey the environment around us and sort of process what's coming in from the outside. Interoception is our capacity to tune into our body. So when we're on a road trip this summer with the kids and I say, hey, can you wait for one more exit? Because I'm always trying to beat my last time, right? Can you wait one more exit to go to the bathroom? They actually use interoception. Their consciousness travels through their body, checks with their bladder, and then they report out, right?
Okay.
well, we have this ability, we don't use it though. And what I train people to do is to tune into their body from their waist to their temples, because that's where they'll experience their triggers and their heart closing. No one's ever said my heart closed and my toes cramped. It's like literally never happened.
Right.
And use your bodily feedback to notice, like, what people don't realize is that before the furnace kicks on full blast, usually the pilot light kicks on in the furnace, right? Yeah, you hear that whoosh, start earlier on. And if you start to use your interoception, you'll be able to notice the pilot light kicking on. And I share in the book data that shows you get about an 80% earlier warning that you're about to be triggered. So you actually create an 80% bigger window to make a choice. Do I really want to flip here from connection mode into protection mode, or do I want this to become another repetition at getting practice at keeping my heart open in this moment? So
that's good.
So that's number one. The reality, and I do think as you develop that skill, I mean, I would say I went in 2021 from being able to catch my heart closing 10% of the time to now being able to catch it 90% of the time before my nervous system is fully revved up. So that's a skill you really build as you do this. But the reality is sometimes we're triggered. I remember early on in 2021, maybe 6 months in, there's an afternoon I was so proud of myself, Julie. I just was hitting home runs as a husband and a father, like, had a cancellation at work and I didn't reschedule someone so I could help with carpool, and, poured my wife a glass of wine when she got home and like created space for her to make dinner in a way she enjoyed. I was just so proud of myself. And I sat down at the kitchen island as she was like boiling some beans for dinner. And I said, hey, I've got a question about my upcoming book launch. This was last book launch. And she looks at me, she goes, do you ever quit working? And, I mean, I went from, a 1 to a 10, like that, because I was so proud of myself and how I was showing up for her, and that I was showing up as a family man, not a businessman, and that kind of thing. So I said to her, I caught it. The second step in the process is, once you're triggered, notice which one of the 9 core defensive urges sort of rises up inside of you, right? And so I noticed my urge to defend myself rise up right away. And so I caught it, and instead of acting on it, I said, hey, I'm going to go to the other room, and I'm going to do some, I said that was triggering. I'm going to go to the other room. I'm going to do some breathing exercises so that I can come back and show up the way that you deserve, which is open-hearted. And I go to the other room, and I'm thinking like I'll do like a 10-minute breathing exercise, deep breathing or something, and I'll be ready, to come back in before the beans are done. And it took me 2 days. 2 days. Because I would get my nervous system regulated, and then I'd think about what she said, and then the stories in my head would start to kick in again, and the personalizing and defending, and my nervous system would go, get activated all over again. And in the middle of that, I texted her a couple times and said, hey, I'm not doing the withdrawal thing to punish you. Like, I'm really working at this, and I'm taking ownership for this, and we'll connect again about it as soon as I can show up regulated, basically.
So you weren't non-communicative. We just weren't talking about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah, we did. I went back to the dinner table, and did my, gritted my teeth through dinner and that kind of thing, and did all that, and assured her that this wasn't a punitive thing, but yeah, I believe in it that strongly, that until you can be regulated, you really don't have any business relating, because you're in protection mode, and nothing good ever happens for connection when you're in protection.
So I don't want to leave that. One, do you want to tell us what the 9 are, or do you want to tell us that we need to read the book to know what the 9 are?
What I'll do, so the 3 main categories are hiding, which is fleeing, right? Yep. Fighting. And then we human beings have added, because we've got these great frontal lobes, all the controlling things we do. And those 3 things I say are selling, mentoring, and dominating. So selling is having an agenda, like trying to talk your people into agreeing with you on something, rather than just telling them what you want and having an open conversation. Yeah. Right? Mentoring is, they're the problem and you're going to fix them. And this is like an early sign of one of Gottman's 4 horses of the apocalypse, which is contempt. Because contempt is, I'm up here and you're down here. Yes. Well, when you're mentoring, you're practicing being up here and they're down here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then the other one's dominating, just telling them what they have to, you have to do this for me to feel better today. Right.
Yeah.
So those are a few of them, but I think the main thing, and to get to the heart of your question, is what do you do in that moment to get yourself regulated? Right.
Exactly, because you still have to function. You have to function in your marriage. You have to function as a parent and a coworker. And so, yes, what do you do in that moment?
Yeah. What do you do? So for me, I was engaging, and I won't go into it in a ton of depth, but a breathing exercise that I've developed that is specifically designed to help us sort of be with the triggered feeling rather than trying to make it go away. Because a lot of times when you, ironically, like, if you feel like you need to relax to be, to be engaged, then you actually get more stressed by the fact that you're not relaxing. So just sort of learning how to be with that triggered place in your body. I was doing that exercise, but what I'll tell people is, most people know what regulates them. They just don't prioritize it.
Yeah.
So for me, literally, we have a large block and we live mostly in the woods. So for me, a 13-minute walk around the block with no headphones, no anything, no phone, specifically listening to the sound of the wind, either in the leaves or the branches if it's wintertime or whatever, that will do more to regulate me than, I don't know, than a whole bottle of wine, which actually doesn't regulate you. It numbs you, and then all the emotions come back later. Yeah. And so, pay attention. You've got, you do have a history of having worked your way through these moments and getting yourself back to regulation. What worked for you? And how can you prioritize it in that moment? I think that's what I did during those 48 hours is like, I'm not doing anything else till I get myself regulated. It took a number of walks, a number of breathing exercises, and ultimately the awareness that, goodness gracious, I am still treating my wife like a vending machine. I thought I put in 4 really great quarters, that afternoon, and that she should spit out total approval of me. And I'm still treating her like that. And I don't want to be in that dynamic with her anymore. And so it involved coming back and confessing that essentially to her. And one of the things I always say to folks is that the quickest way to open your heart is to confess your closed heart, right? Just to kind of go, hey, I closed because this hurts and I'm telling myself these stories, but I'm going to open up to you by just sharing that with you.
Yeah. Well, and to your point just now, I think so often we do stay up here with all the defensiveness. And the truth is, hey, like that really hurt. My feelings are hurt. And I thought I was doing a great job. And my gut is just thinking through, you don't ever turn off work. I don't know that she was like, oh, I'm just going to do that intentionally just to like go at him.
No, I don't. It wasn't intentional at all. No. Or maybe it was. Right? Like that's the thing. If we get ourselves into a position where it's like, I don't want to get triggered if my partner's behaving properly, but if they're behaving improperly, then it's okay.
Oh, like then it's legit.
Right. Like she was being mean there. So I have a right to get triggered. You'll actually notice those thoughts. Like they were wrong. So I have a right. Right.
Yeah.
And the reality is, regardless of how they're showing up, you always have the option to choose how you show up next. And so we're just trying to restore that option to people.
Boy, that's I think that's really important. You have a choice about how you show up next. That is,
right.
It is not based on what your spouse does or does not do. It's mine.
Exactly. And in reality, again, you think about to me, this is, our hearts naturally open up when our people's hearts are open,
Yes.
The real work begins when their hearts close and then ours want to close in response to that. It reminds me of Jesus who said, anybody can, love their friend. How about your enemy? How about the tax collector? How about learning to keep your heart open when your partner's heart is closing? Yes. And And I wanted to come back to what you just mentioned, is it hurts. That's why it's hard to do. It's why we don't want to do it, is that deep underneath the triggered reaction usually is some sense of pain around separation and loneliness. And I like to define loneliness for people because it's another word that gets used in a lot of ways. To me, the 3 pillars of loneliness are feeling unseen, misunderstood, or unsupported. And what you discover is that when you sort of can settle the triggered reaction and get connected with the pain point that was being protected in that moment, it's some version of unseen, misunderstood, or unsupported. And for my wife that night, I felt unseen. I felt like what I was hoping is that she'd see what I had done that afternoon and go, hey, thank you for everything, and I felt really lonely and unseen. And so I started to protect myself. Theoretically, if you didn't get triggered in that moment, and I'm able to do this a little more these days, you go, ooh, dagger, because I was so proud of how I'd shown up this afternoon, and I was hoping you would see that. And I'm wondering, do you see any of it? And I know what my wife would say if I responded that way. She'd be like, yes, totally get that. Yep, I saw you. Thank you for doing this and that. But it hurts so much at first to be unseen that we jump right into protection mode, and we can't stay in connection mode like that.
Yeah. And so what I hear you describing is really taking your triggers and turning them into what you describe as teachers. Like you're learning what's going on inside of you, and instead of reacting, learning how to take that information and figure out, hey, what's a good way to keep my heart open and respond in a way that's going to create connection versus disconnection. Would that be an accurate?
Absolutely. As I was writing the book, actually, I sort of had this vision of a big X on the cover originally, because I really do think our triggered moments are like an X on the treasure map of our life. And what we do, unfortunately, is we try to avoid the X, try to bypass it, or once we stumble upon it, we try to brush it out of the sand. But if we can actually recognize that those triggered moments are a place to pause and start to dig into them, there's treasure buried beneath our triggered moments. I tell people these days, 90% of your personal, emotional, and relational and spiritual growth will happen in your triggered moments. And everything else is just getting to enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to happen. Everything else is just sort of getting to enjoy the fruit of that growth. Yeah. And so, our triggers are our teachers. We don't have to treat them like tripwires. We can sort of stumble upon them and go, oh, I'm going to learn something here about me. I'm going to grow. I'm going to heal a little more. And to me, that's the great promise.
Yes, for sure. So you talk about learning through this process how to show up in relationship rupture proof. Can you speak to that?
I will tell you, that's bombastic language that doesn't necessarily fit with my normal style. I even get a little antsier when we start talking about conflict proof.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because you're going to have conflict.
Yes. But what I will say is my wife and I have had plenty of conflict in the last year. I don't think we've had a relationship rupture in a while. Now we're both practicing this. We're both, walking the road less triggered and implementing the process. But when that flashpoint happens, when that triggered moment happens, you have two people who are owning how they're showing up, getting themselves calm, saying, hey, the next step is up to me here. And then utilizing the moment to learn a little bit more about the pain point that was just stirred up for them, and then coming back to each other and being like, this is what was hurting inside of me in that moment. And, one of the most wild things is that we do is we have a pain point stirred up in our marriages, and we pin it all on the other person, as if we didn't bring any pain into the marriage. and the reality is we brought a lot of pain out of our childhoods. Yeah, right. And then we got busy with becoming an adult and sort of tried to push it all into the basement. Yeah. And then we met this person and we're like, oh, all that stuff in the basement even seemed to go away when I'm with them. So I want to spend the rest of my life with them. And then when that stuff comes up the stairs out of the basement, we go, well, you must have caused it. When in reality, like they're maybe doing something that stirs it up. But so these days, my wife and I will just come together, and it's an opportunity to learn more about her pain point and where it came from. And vice versa for me. And that makes it really hard to rupture. You know, it makes it hard to have that, like, that moment where you're like, hey, we did it again. And I just don't know how we're going to really come back from this one other than to sort of brush it under the rug or come to this sort of uneasy detente, you know, where we agree to disagree or whatever. Like, I don't really see how this generates deeper connection. And we just have not had one of those in a long time.
You know, I'm just sitting here thinking as you're saying all of this that we talk a lot. So here you guys are 25 years in. And a lot of people would be like, well, wait, you haven't gotten it all figured out. And we talk a lot about, hey, this is a journey. And part of that journey is continually learning about yourself and learning about your spouse and still being curious. And I really love what you're talking about here, because I think it points us to, hey, you have to keep your eyes wide open. Like you can't at any point just go on autopilot in your marriage, because this relationship is a living organism that is growing and changing and becoming over time. And so the more you are intentional about paying attention to, hey, what makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, or your palms sweat, or your mouth go dry, and what is happening inside of me, and taking responsibility for that, the better your relationship, the richer your relationship is going to be.
I think it's a fundamental idea to what you just articulated, that to recognize that the engine of your marriage is learning more about yourself and each other. And that if you're not doing that, you're stalled. And if, you know, and stalled is not a great place to be. It doesn't feel good. So I think that is really an essential truth, you know, and it's one I struggle with. I'm an Enneagram 3. I want the finish line. I want she and I to, and I still get attached to that. We'll go long periods without any conflict at all now. But then I start to get attached to this. Ooh, maybe we're not going to have conflict, you know? And it's like, no, that's not going to happen. So then my heart closes all the more the next time there's a little flare up and I have to go, oh, wait. My spiritual director reminds me all the time, Kelly, we're not here to be finished. We're here to be formed.
Amen.
Right? And you're going to keep getting formed all the way to the end. You got to surrender to that. And I'm like, okay, I know that's true. So I had to watch out for my finish line mentality. Yeah. I mean, there's some, I don't know. I want easy street. Don't we all want easy street? We don't want the road less triggered. We want easy street, right? And the reality is the road less triggered.
Coast. Yeah.
But it's not, easy street isn't rewarding. No. It's not deepening. It's not rich in the spiritual rewards. And so the road less triggered is, and that's why I love walking it.
Yeah, man, oh my gosh, this is so good. I would love to hear from you. I ask every guest this. What is one practical thing that you would encourage couples to do on the daily that could significantly impact their marriage?
I love that. So I think first of all, I'd encourage spouses, because someone's probably listening to this and going, oh, I'm going to buy this book for my spouse. You know, and
I'm going to get myself to listen to this podcast.
Yes. Important to go for it. I mean, definitely do it. Buy the book, buy two, give one to your spouse, but recognize that they might put the book on the shelf, that you can't enroll them in this journey.
Yes.
But this is one of the most exciting things about it, is that so much of this is caught, not taught, you know, that you, in the same way that they're the weather for you and you can't change them, you're the weather for them. And becoming a different kind of weather can influence them, can impact them. So I say we don't have power over our people, but we do have power around our people.
Yes.
And so start practicing this as a spouse is the first thing that I would say. And the place I would start is get the book, but also consider that New Year's resolution that kicked me off. Moment to moment, I will notice my heart closing and try to open it back up. One of the really cool pieces of feedback I'm getting about the book is that by the time I'm done with that first chapter, I am realizing dozens of times a day that my heart is closing, and I didn't realize it before. And I start to get emotional talking about this, that people are out there going, oh, this is why that goes south. Oh, this is what I can do differently in that moment. So I think just that intention for awareness brought into daily life. But if you have a partner who's also joining you in this, just to begin to create an opportunity to share, maybe not, set an intention of doing it daily, but mainly do it at a time when you're setting yourselves up for success. Like protect some time where you have some energy and say, hey, these are the ways I noticed my heart closed today. Maybe in relation to you, but also in relation to the dude who cut me off in traffic. And when we were trying to get out the door with, Johnny, and he wouldn't put his shoes on and all the things. And just start to share those moments of closing. That in and of itself can be a deep, deep sort of move toward greater intimacy and connection.
So good. Thank you so much for being willing to share all of this with us. And thank you all for listening today. I would encourage you to grab the book and dig in and see how you show up differently in your marriage. For more information and updates, you can visit marriageonthedaily.com. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would share it with your friends, because that's how we grow. And until next time, remember, it's the little things that matter on the daily in your marriage.